Karen burned down my garden fence, got fined $150,000 and court-ordered to rebuild it. The summer sun beat down on my backyard, where my garden was my sanctuary, a patchwork of roses, sunflowers, and herbs I'd nurtured for years. Every morning, I'd sip coffee on my porch, watching bees dance between blooms, the wooden fence I'd built with my late father standing proudly as a boundary between my haven and the chaos of the world. That is, until Karen moved in next door. Karen was the kind of neighbor who saw boundaries as suggestions. From day one, she complained about everything. My fence was too rustic. My roses were too fragrant. My sprinklers were too loud. I tried to be civil, offering her fresh tomatoes, inviting her to coffee. She'd just sneer, her eyes glinting with a strange mix of entitlement and disdain. "This neighborhood's gone downhill," she'd mutter, slamming her door. The tension simmered for months. Karen's complaints escalated to petty axe trash tossed over my fence, her dog digging up my tulips. I documented everything, hoping it wouldn't come to more. But deep down, I knew Karen was a storm waiting to break. One humid July evening, I came home to a nightmare. Smoke choked the air, and orange flames licked the sky where my fence once stood. My garden, my father's legacy, was a battlefield of ash and wilted petals. Karen stood in her yard, arms crossed, a gasoline can at her feet, her face twisted in triumph. "It was an eyesore," she spat as I stumbled toward the wreckage. "You should thank me." I was too stunned to speak. Neighbors gathered, phones out, whispering. Among them was Mr. Ellis, a quiet retiree who'd always kept to himself. His eyes were wide, not with shock, but with something else, guilt. I didn't have time to process it. I called the fire department, then the police. Karen didn't flinch, even as sirens wailed closer. The investigation was swift. Arson was undeniable, gasoline traces, scorch patterns, and Karen's own careless admission to a neighbor that she'd taken care of the problem. But the real twist came when Mr. Ellis stepped forward. Trembling, he confessed he'd overheard Karen planning to teach me a lesson days earlier. He'd done nothing, fearing her wrath himself, but the guilt had eaten him alive. His testimony, paired with security footage from another neighbor's camera, sealed Karen's fate. The courtroom was a circus. Karen, dressed in a pristine blazer, played the victim, claiming my fence was a hazard, and she'd acted in self-defense. Her lawyer spun tales of neighborhood disputes, painting me as the aggressor. But the evidence was ironclad. Photos of my scorched garden, the gasoline can with her fingerprints, Mr. Ellis's shaky but damning statement. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap. Karen was fined $150,000 for damages and ordered to rebuild my fence to exact specifications. I should have felt victorious, but as I sat in my ruined garden, the weight of it all pressed down. The money couldn't replace the memories burned away. My father's hands shaping that fence, his laughter as we planted the first roses. Karen's punishment felt hollow when the roots of our conflict ran deeper than one act of malice. She wasn't just a Karen. She was a woman unraveling, her anger a mask for something broken inside. I'd overheard her once, late at night, crying on her porch about a divorce, a lost job. It didn't excuse her, but it made her human. The rebuild began weeks later. Karen, under court supervision, hired contractors to reconstruct the fence. I watched from my porch as she stood by, humiliated, her usual bravado gone. The new fence rose, plank by plank, a mirror of the old one. But it wasn't the same. The roses I replanted struggled in the scorched soil, and the neighborhood's whispers never stopped. Mr. Ellis avoided me, his confession a fleeting act of courage that left him retreating back into solitude. One evening, as the last plank was nailed in, Karen approached me. No apology, just a curt nod. "It's done," she said, her voice flat. I wanted to scream, to demand why she'd hated me so much, but the exhaustion in her eyes stopped me. Instead, I handed her a cutting from my surviving sunflower, a small, stubborn thing that refused to die. "Plant it," I said. "Maybe it'll grow." She took it, her fingers trembling, and walked away without a word. The fence stood tall again, but the scars lingered. My garden would heal slowly, but the trust between neighbors, the sense of community, was ash in the wind. Karen moved away a month later. Her house sold to a young couple who waved shyly over the fence. I waved back, but I couldn't shake the bitterness. Justice had been served, but at what cost? The fire hadn't just burned my fence, it had exposed the fragility of the world we'd built here, where grudges could ignite into something unstoppable. I still sit on my porch, watching the bees return, tentative, to the new blooms. Mr. Ellis's confession replayed in my mind, a reminder that silence can be as destructive as action. Karen's fine and the rebuilt fence were a kind of justice, but they couldn't undo the loss. The sunflower cutting I'd given her, I wondered if she'd planted it, or if it, too, had withered. What do you think? Does justice heal wounds, or does it just bury them? Share your thoughts on where the line falls between right, wrong, and the messy human heart.